Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. Since yesterday morning, millions of litres of raw sewage from Warsaw have been flowing into the river Vistula as a result of a breakdown at the Czajka sewage treatment plant. The mayor of Warsaw, Rafał Trzaskowski, has accused the government of politicising the case and causing panic. Despite the scale of the contamination, the mayor claims that there is no catastrophe. According to government officials, Warsaw authorities were hiding information about the accident. The crisis staff, together with the Polish Prime Minister, will meet to discuss the ecological catastrophe on the Vistula.
Nie ma powodów do paniki.
There is no need to panic. There is no ecological catastrophe.
Życiu mieszkańców.
In the afternoon at the Warsaw Security Center, the Warsaw Mayor Rafał Trzaskowski ensured that the breakdown in the Czajka sewage treatment plant is not a threat to the environment. Despite the fact that the Vistula River has been contaminated, Trzaskowski has admitted that the Warsaw authorities don't know how to deal with the catastrophe.
To nie jest tak, że mamy rozwiązania, które...
It's not like we have solutions that are ready to be implemented. Two pipelines broke down. That is why we have a problem. Therefore, we are looking for an emergency solution, but we haven't found it yet. I hope we'll find it as soon as the collector is repaired.
Jeszcze nie ma.
The Minister of Environment, Henryk Kowalczyk, claims that we have to deal with a problem that is a real danger to the life and health of the inhabitants.
From the information we received from the Wodociągi Warszawskie company, we are talking about 260,000 cubic meters of sewage flowing into the Vistula River in the last 24 hours.
The leader of the Civic Platform Party, Grzegorz Schetyna, and Rafał Trzaskowski accused the government of causing panic.
Na początku wszyscy
Ruling party politicians manipulate the reality and they want to build their election campaign on this breakdown.
The head of the Chancellery of the Prime Minister of Poland says that the government wants to help with handling the situation.
The government wants to help. They shouldn't ignore our help. In the face of a catastrophe, we should cooperate for the good of Poles.
Today, the Minister of Health, Łukasz Szumowski, warned about bathing and drinking water from the Vistula River. The prosecutor's office started proceedings in this matter.
The Parliamentary Legislative Committee today debated the establishment of a commission concerning paedophilia. The need to set up such a commission was made clear following the premiere of the film by the Sekielski brothers, Tell No One, which looked at cases of paedophilia in the church. Alexander Zaziecka reports from the same.
Rządowy projekt zakłada powołanie 7-osobowej komisji, która miałaby pracować przez 7 lat i badać
The government project envisions the establishment of a 7-member commission to work for 7 years and study cases of pedophilia regardless of the environment in which they occurred. Among other tasks, the commission would identify the negligence of the state when it comes to clarifying sexual offenses. It would also co-create a register of perpetrators of such crimes. The topic of covering up or hiding pedophilia crimes sounded often in the election campaign before the European elections, and this happened after the release of the Sekielski brothers film. The accusations were then directed towards priest communities. In response, Prime Minister Morawiecki announced his intention to set up a state commission that would focus on this problem, but not only in the case of priests, but in all circles, be it clergy or artists or teachers. Jarosław Kaczyński, the president of Law and Justice, says neither the Purple Heart, nor an Oscar, nor a Nobel Prize will protect anyone from punishment.
O zamiarze powołania takiej państwowej komisji, która pochyli się nad tym problemem.
Problem jest taki, co też jest podkreślane, nie tylko w Polsce, ale przecież w wielu krajach.
The problem, which is also present not only in Poland, but in many other countries in Europe and in the world, is that no institution other than a church institution has run such an organized system of concealment. We had it in the United States, we had it in Ireland and in many other countries where this taboo subject was broken and the church itself decided that it must clear itself of this matter.
Uznało, że musi się z tej sprawy oczyścić.
Przestępstwo, jakim są czyny.
Pedophilia concerns many different environments, and it is not as the opposition would like to see it, that this matter concerns only one environment. If this were to be the case, it could be seen as part of the fight against the church, but we are aware of the fact that the problem has a very wide range, and therefore a state commission is being formed to deal with it.
The leader of the opposition Civic Platform Party, Grzegorz Schetyna, confirmed that his grouping would submit a motion to dismiss the current Minister of Justice, Zbigniew Ziobro. Civic Platform holds him responsible for the scandal of the hate campaign against certain judges, which it is claimed originated in the ministry.
Składamy dzisiaj ten wniosek, doprowadzimy do
We are submitting this proposal today. We will lead to a debate and we will very clearly be asking for the answers to the questions we have asked. We expect documents, we expect information from Minister Wójcik. This information was promised. Unfortunately, we have no answer from the Ministry of Justice. The ministry wants to hide this matter, push it even deeper under the carpet. We will not allow it. I want to say this very clearly. Those guilty of this organized action will be held politically responsible.
The Italian Prime Minister, Giuseppe Conte, who was asked by President Sergio Mattarella to form a new government, said that the country must end the current uncertainty as soon as possible. A new government, based on a coalition of the Democratic Party and the anti-establishment Five Star Movement, is to be sworn in the first days of September. The formation of a new government by Prime Minister Conte means that for now, at least, the plan of the former Deputy Prime Minister, Matteo Salvini, who was hoping to take power after the elections, is out of the question.
Buongiorno a tutti.
The President gave me a mission to form a new cabinet. Today I'm starting consultation talks with all parliamentary groups. As a result, I'm hoping to form a program for the new government which will be acceptable to all potential allies.
Oggi stesso. Eccoci qua.
We will act according to our tradition. We will be precise, quick, honest and direct in dealing with our president, and we will express our complete astonishment. I am not talking just in the name of the League, but in the name of millions of Italians who are going to follow this comic performance, this struggle for power between the Democratic Party and the Five Star Movement. If they were honest, they would call new elections. Elections are the beautiful exercise of democracy. Those who are afraid of elections may be able to escape that for 6 months, maybe a year, but it is going to get them someday. It is interesting what they will offer our nation. The only thing which unites them is hatred to the League. The leaders of the left-wing party and Five Star Movement are talking about saving Italy despite the recent history of being enemies. The uniting factor for them is the idea of stopping Salvini, who is against Italy taking immigrants and who has disapproving views on the European Union. The current coalition would like to hold power until the next Italian elections, which are planned for 2023. Salvini is not only the Deputy Prime Minister, but he is also the Minister of the Interior. Sharing of power was not enough for him, and that is why he caused the fall of the cabinet, hoping for an immediate special election. Recent political polls were favorable to him. Salvini's poker strike failed, no new elections, and the current allies to form a new cabinet with one goal: to stop Salvini.
That's the news. Stay with us for the weather and Poland Daily Business. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.
I'm Aleksandra Zarzycka and welcome to Poland Daily Weather. Let's take a look at the forecast for tonight. A warm night across the country, but with rainfalls. Temperature will range between 17 to even 21 degrees in western Poland. Sky will be cloudless only around Koszalin and Gdańsk. And now over to tomorrow. Light overcast sky in most regions, but from time to time we are expecting thunderstorms. The temperature will increase to 33 degrees in Kraków and Katowice. Pressure will be low. Let's see the forecast for the following 3 days. Saturday will be sunny, especially on the west. More rainfalls will appear in central and on the east. On Sunday, temperature will hover around 32 degrees. It will be a stormy day in the whole country. On Monday, we are expecting alternating sunlight and rainfalls. Temperature will little drop to 21 degrees on the northwest and 29 in eastern Poland. Thank you for watching and goodbye.
Poland Daily Business tonight, a conversation with Jakub Wiech of Energetyka24.com. Sir, thank you very much for participating in the show. And let us start from the upcoming hot winter. And we know that it's going to be hot, and you will tell us why.
Yes, of course, there is an atmospheric way we can consider it, because it probably will be a mild winter. We won't see any significant drops in temperature. However, there is also a political sphere, and regarding of that, we can anticipate that it will be held because of the Russians and the Russian conflict in the sphere of gas transfer towards Europe. We are now, we are now focusing. The whole Europe is focusing on the relationship between Ukraine and Russia and their conflict on transferring Russian gas to Europe. And well, it's possible that the winter of 2019 will bring another gas war. And it happened 10 years ago. We had the gas war in 2009. And it showed that Europe is very highly reliable on the Russian gas. We are binded so hard to the Russians that we cannot function properly without their natural resources and fuels. So we will probably see it again in the next few months, and it may be used by Russian policy and politics and propaganda to, for example, show that the Nord Stream 2 project is actually necessary for Europe to secure its energy security.
The problem are going to happen because the agreement of the gas transfer is expiring between Russia and Ukraine. So Russia will stop pumping gas through Ukraine, and we will see what happens.
Yeah, that's correct. Russians thought that they will manage to finish the Nord Stream 2 project by...
That's why they were pushing so hard in the recent 3 years.
Yes, and they were so sure that they will finish it by 2019 that they didn't care about the agreement covering the gas transfer through Ukraine. But now we know that Nord Stream 2 will be delayed, and the Ukrainians are wanting to negotiate another treaty, another agreement that will guarantee the flow of the Russian gas through their territory. But the Russians don't want to sign an agreement of that kind. So we are now waiting for what happened in during the negotiations. But we know that now Gazprom is lowering the prices of gas. It's pumping additional amounts of gas towards Europe to fill the storages in Europe in the manner to secure its clients in Europe because of the possible dangers that will happen during the winter and may affect on gas supplies.
Mm-hmm. They are also using the LNG technology.
Yeah, they are also using the LNG terminals, and they are active in that sphere of the market. But
there's going to be a ship anchored in one of the German ports that will transfer gas.
It may secure supplies for some time, but we should focus on what happened with the gas pipelines, because it's the most important way to transfer the Russian gas towards Europe. And actually, what happened during the negotiations between Kiev and Moscow will have an effect on the Russian policy towards Ukraine in the next few years. So it is very important to know what will happen.
Poland is also insecure in that area. We are not looking patiently at this situation because we depend very much on the Russian gas. We try to switch and diversify the energy resources for our country. What is our policy in this light?
Well, still, after a few years of the diversification, over 50% of the gas that we are consuming in Poland comes from Russia. However, we are now, let's say, much more secure than we were in 2010 when the current gas agreement with Russia was signed. But this is not the situation that may let us feel safe. However, we have gas shipments from the United States, from Qatar, that may cover our consumption needs during some times. But we have to understand that the Russian way of managing the conflict with Europe is actually focused on highlighting the meaning of Nord Stream 2 project. And Nord Stream 2 project is dangerous for Poland too in the geopolitical way. So we will not be cut down from the deliveries of the Russian gas, because we are in part of the European Union, so we will have to, in the other, well, let's say the worst way, we'll have to, in the worst scenario, we'll have to use the mechanism that are guaranteed by the European Union. But the countries like Ukraine, they will be in danger, and Ukraine and other countries that cannot rely on the EU in that way. But we should secure that, because actually we depend our national security on Ukraine as a buffer state. That's help us to put the Russian influence to some like.
So the Russians are concentrating on Ukraine and problems with this country, and they don't have resources sufficient to concentrate on us. So.
That's correct.
Thank you very much. Jakub Wiech of energetyka24.com. That's a portal, very interesting one, in Polish and in English.
Yes, that's correct.
So you can also check the website. Was our guest tonight, sir. Thank you very much for this conversation.
I'm Aleksandra Zarzycka and welcome back to Poland Daily Weather. Let's take a look at the forecast for tomorrow. Light overcast sky in most regions, but from time to time we are expecting thunderstorms. The temperature will increase to 33 degrees in Kraków and Katowice. Pressure will be low. And now let's see tomorrow's forecast for our continent. Loads of sun almost in the whole continent. In Central Europe we will see temperature which will hover between 26 and 28 degrees. Sun will dominate on the south of Europe, and there we will notice the highest temperature, even 34 degrees. Stormy weather will appear in Central and in Western Europe. Thank you for watching and see you soon.
Good day, everyone. My name is Maria Kądzielska, and this is Poland Daily Culture. We have in studio with us one of the most talented young Polish vocalists. Ladies and gentlemen, Marta Zalewska.
Happy to be here.
She sings, plays a guitar and violin, and recently published her debut album. But before we dig up all Marta's music secrets, let's listen to one of her songs.
Hey you, I think you're drunk just enough to see. Hey you, the daylight uncovers the truth. Don't get excited too much. Hey you, I know that you're trying to hide what's real.
You're a vocalist. You play guitar, you play violin, you compose your own songs, you play you act in a musical. So what are your plans for the future? How do you want to develop, if it's possible even?
I would like to fly to the universe. No, seriously, I'm planning many things, but mainly I will focus on my second album, of course, and the concerts that are ahead. You can find the information on my Facebook fan page if you are interested, so please come, give a like, and come to the shows.
When are your shows? When can we listen to you? Where can we listen to you? And when can we listen to you and see you on stage?
I will be featured in Lato z Radiem Festival this month in the finale. I will sing a few songs acoustically only with a guitar. Also on the 4th of September I will go to Orebro to Life at Heart Festival, held in Sweden. The next day I'll play in Warsaw on Bulwary Wiślane.
And the next day.
Yes, and on the next day I'll play in Koszalin. So yes, that will be exhausting time.
Wow, so it's really packed schedule. How do you also, of course, you travel with your band. Who is in your band? Who are the people in it? Who do you give work to and who do you cooperate with?
I'm very lucky to work with my family and friends. That's really it. The bass player, the composer of a few songs, and the producer of my first album is actually my husband, Krzysztof Pacan.
So with any problems and quarrels and requests, you take it back to work, like home things. There's no escape.
Yes, and on the other hand, if we don't agree in the band, only divorce can work it out. To be honest, of course, there are some quarrels and we differ in many things, but we see music the same way. We both want it to be natural, free, true, and we stick to it. On drums, there's his brother, Przemek Pacan, but on the guitar is my cousin. I always say brother because we are so close. My cousin Paweł Zalewski.
So you're a very musical family then.
Yes, my family, they are musicians from decades. In my band there is Róża Dudziewicz, who is my friend for, I shouldn't say that, but for about 25 years now.
So all friends, and so are there any, you travel with them, and as I understand you have to take them to Sweden and to Koszalin and everywhere. How do you manage all of those people, and how do you manage to cooperate? Is like already a life of a musician, just only sleeping in hotels?
No, not yet, but it happens sometimes. We are a small group still. 5 people is not an orchestra, but we always need a big bus, and it's always fun to drive it because I like to drive the bus. I think that's not very.
So you're driving the bus?
Yes.
Do you drive them to Sweden?
Not really. We go by plane.
Okay.
But I don't drive.
Will you try to drive the plane?
But yes,
Fine.
when I get a chance, I like to drive anything that I can: motorcycles, buses, a yacht, and yes, anything.
Yes. Hopefully, fingers crossed that nothing happens, and that you're a good driver. Will you have any other abroad performances after Sweden? Anything in the plans?
I'm trying to make it possible to go to London and to play a show with a few band friends, as I say it. But that is kept in a secret so far, so I didn't say that. But yes, there are plans.
Sure, there are plans. Fingers crossed for that. Thanks. And you already made through your way on the Polish music stage, and now you're building your career and all of your abilities. And what advice would you give to all young people who are composing or singing at home, being 17 or 18, and thinking if it's a good idea to be a musician instead of going to, low studies, and as their parents tell them every day?
Go to low studies, don't play music. No. To be honest, I would like to answer this question in like 20 years or so. I think I would be ready to give the right answer to this question, but for now, what I know is to be brave and get encouraged to just go there and do your own thing. And if it's the truth, if it's really you, if you're not pretending anyone, it's always the right way.
Did you ever in life have a moment of thinking that this is not your way, or that you should reverse, that you should change something and go to those medical studies, for example, parents always talk about, or take some other, I would say, more down-to-earth job and find your way in this?
I was always thinking what it would be like to work from 9 to 5, but I've never done it. I'm earning money only with music all my life, and I think that's beautiful because music is my passion. So I could say I've never worked any day of my life because I'm always doing what I love. So that's amazing. But I try to look really widely I will always observe what are different people's lives. I think I wouldn't change my way, but there were times when I thought that maybe I should change something, but always music. I think I'm destined to be a musician, I think so.
Is it in your family? Were your family also supportive for you in this case and in this path of art?
Yes, really, really supportive, and I'm very thankful for that. My parents are musicians, both of them. So since I was a child, I remember watching them on stage. I was really, really small girl, like 3 or 4, and I remember this view when my parents are on stage, and I'm so curious, and I really want so hard to join them because it seems like it's a lot of fun what they're doing. So I'd like to join them, and I really tried to make it possible as soon as I could.
So your parents were your main inspiration at the beginning?
Yes, of course, yes.
So a musical career such as yours requires talent, but also support from others. And as you say, you have a family band. Do you wish, or do you give any advice, or a single advice for a young musician? Or did you ever got a good advice which kind of was a twist in your life, or which you needed, or did you remember and did you keep in your mind, which kind of shaped you?
Yes, few, but to just pick one, I think it's important to stick to your plan, even if there are things that you have to struggle with, even if there are hard times, if you doubt. Of course, if you get people that supports you, that's really fantastic, because these are the moments when you go to them and they keep you alive simply and help you to go the way you planned, to follow the way you've dreamed of. So
stick to your plans, yes?
Yes,
so that's the main goal.
You know, not to think about too many things outside the main dream, because I think that's what makes it happen and what makes it possible, that you really focus on something. And I always must say it to me every single day, focus.
So focus on your plan. Ladies and gentlemen, Marta Zalewska on Poland Daily Culture. Thank you for coming and sharing with us all those details of your music life.
Thank you.
And thank you, viewers of Poland Daily, for being with us.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and welcome to another episode of Poland Daily History. Today, we are in the Praga district of Warsaw, in front of a statue of one of the great war heroes of the Polish Bolshevik War, Father Ignacy Skorupka. This statue is located right here, as he served this very church, and it was from here that his unit set out to confront the enemy. In early August of 1920, the Soviet Red Army was closing in on Warsaw. They were only a couple hundred kilometers away from linking arms with the Soviet revolutionary forces of Germany, Austria, and Hungary. Join us as we explore the Polish Bolshevik War, the Battle of Warsaw, and its impact on all of Europe. During the Polish Bolshevik War, Poland did not fight alone. They have allies from foreign countries, and I was wondering who were the Polish allies and how did they achieve in helping Poland out?
Oczywiście wszystkie sąsiednie państwa zorientowały się, że to nie jest tylko walka o Polskę, że to jest w ogóle walka o Europę.
Of course, all neighboring countries realized that it was not only a fight for Poland, that it was a fight for Europe, and the Bolsheviks did not hide it. Europe was to be conquered at all costs, at the cost of Poland. They were to enter Germany, maybe even France. Hence, mobilization around Poland was huge, and we can divide it into 3 zones. The first were the nations of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, as if the first Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth was resurrected. In addition to Poles, the allies in the fight and in the Brotherhood of Arms were the Ukrainians, who, under the command of General Marko Bezruczko, defended the Polish city of Zamość. Petlura fought in the south, along the Dniester River. They would almost have reached Odessa if the conditions were suitable. There was also a branch of independent Belarusians under the leadership of Bułak Balachowicz. There were 2,000 of them who also liberated a large part of Belarus, and when the truce was concluded, they set off to liberate the rest of Belarus, establishing the Slut Republic, existing almost half a year east of Poland. Finally, there were Lithuanian Belarusian regiments composed of Poles living around Vilnius on the border of Lithuania and Belarus under the command of General Żeligowski. However, among the countries that surrounded Poland, two deserve special recognition. These are the Hungarians, who survived the Bolshevik Revolution and knew well what would happen if the Bolsheviks returned here. They would simply be murdered and would offer the Poles fighting all the armament that the Hungarian state had at its disposal at that moment. 4 powerful trains came through Romania because unfortunately Czechoslovakia behaved hostile and did not let them pass, and they ultimately reached Warsaw. In the event that the Bolsheviks were to enter Warsaw, this would serve the Polish army as an ammunition reserve. Ultimately, what the Hungarians gave us was very necessary because it suited the Polish weapons we had after the Germans and Austrians. It was used in the Battle of Niemen River. The second country was Latvia, which was well aware that when Poland was defeated, Latvia would also come to an end and, as it could, also supported Poles. This also manifested itself in the fact that the Latvians were able to occupy the entire Powiat on the other side of the Daugava River and save it from the Bolshevik occupation. When the Polish army arrived after the victory, they gave the Powiat away to Poles with no need of negotiations. We have kept the borders with Latvia intact since the 16th century. They were a real friend. Then we had a third group, France, which is very important here because 6 trains with ammunition came daily from France and through Italy, Yugoslavia, Romania and the eastern borderlands, i.e. Stanisławów, Lviv, and reached the Polish fronts one by one. Unfortunately, Czechoslovakia belonged to silent enemies. They refused transit of both weapons and volunteers. Ultimately, for example, the Hungarian Cavalry Brigade wanted to help Poland and waited for permission near Košice. Unfortunately, the Czechs did not grant it, and the brigade could not come. Then it was not needed anymore, but moral support was enormous at that time.
Brygada nie mogła dojść. No, potem już nie była potrzebna, ale wsparcie moralne było wtedy ogromne.
So during the war, Poland did have its allies, but I can imagine there would also be countries that are not so friendly. I was wondering who were the more hostile nations?
Tak, no przede wszystkim wrogie były dawne państwa zaborcze. Próba zakupienia broni w Austrii zakończyła się niepowodzeniem.
Yes, the enemies were largely all the former partitioning powers. Attempts to buy weapons in Austria were unsuccessful, and Germany would almost have entered the war had it not been for Marshal Foch, who had put the 3 million French army, after a terrible 4-year war, on standby and said, "One move from the Germans and we are entering the basin of Western Germany." This eventually stopped the Germans and allowed the Poles to win. The Bolsheviks, however, did everything to disrupt Poles. They would create a terrible image of Poles for their neighbors. Even the Romanians tried to do so, but they did not come in handy. And, for example, when they occupied the area which belonged to Germany before the war, they brought the former mayor from the area of Masuria, and he was ordered to be the new mayor on behalf of Bolshevik Germany. It was the city of Działdowo. Finally, the third country, which was also hostile toward Poland, though not quite, this was a very complicated situation, was primarily Lithuania, with which we had disputed Vilnius. Lithuanians claimed some historical grievances against Vilnius, while Vilnius was mostly inhabited by Poles, 60%, while the amount of Lithuanian inhabitants was close to 2 to 3%. In connection with this, a historical conflict arose, a Polish-Lithuanian one. Some some Lithuanians were persuaded by the Bolshevik side to take over Vilnius. Of course, it was a trap. Lithuanians were to obtain Vilnius together with the Soviet army, and this army would calmly take over the rest of the country. This did take place in 1940. However, the Bolsheviks were conquered on the Vistula and then on the Neman withdrew, giving Vilnius to Lithuanians. A problem arose: how to restore Vilnius to Poland. There were no contacts. Lithuanians were not able to make any more sensible conversations. Poles were even ready to leave Vilnius on the condition of some union, restoration of some community with Lithuania, so that the Poles would be at least able to be a little protected. Lithuania did not agree, and then Marshal Piłsudski gave his general Żeligowski, bearing a half-Lithuanian name, to rebel and take Vilnius. This happened, moreover, on October 8, 1920. The Marshal rebelled, and the day after he announced the creation of Central Lithuania. Why Central? Because Samogitian Lithuania, the one that spoke Lithuanian, was called Western, Lithuania that spoke Polish was called Central, and Lithuania that spoke Belarusian, with Belarusian Minsk, or Lithuanian, was called Eastern Lithuania. It was a mix of historical and ethnographic terms. In this way, the state of Central Lithuania existed for 3 years, and finally, by a resolution of its own parliament, was incorporated into the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth and the then Second Polish Republic, which was made up of Poland and Central Lithuania, began to gain recognition, and subsequently became the Vilnius province. Only this moment ended the fight for borders. In 1922, Poland returns to Upper Silesia after 700 years. We lost it in the 14th century to the Kingdom of Bohemia. Vilnius becomes part of the Second Polish Republic, and until 1923 there was a war between Lithuania and a tiny commune Warwiszki, in which Poles were resisting the Lithuanian army. Eventually, the people of this village left it to the Lithuanians. It was on the other side of the Neman, and having crossed to the other side of Poland, ended activities that were to save Poland's borders. Gdańsk remained as a free city outside Poland. Kresy and Cieszyn Silesia remained in Poland, where 120,000 Poles lived.
Poza Polską pozostało Gdańsk jako wolne miasto, pozostały Kresy, no i pozostał Śląsk Cieszyński, gdzie mieszkało 120 000 Polaków.
The Battle of Warsaw was the decisive point of the Polish-Bolshevik War. It saved Europe from an imminent communist invasion and gave Poland a vital 20 years as an independent state before the outbreak of the Second World War. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and I'll see you next time on Poland Daily History.
Oh, we're back. I mean, we're here again. Welcome to There's a Will. I'm Will, and this guest with me is Nicholas Richardson. You may recognize him from his many appearances on Poland Daily, including reading the news, which he does with great skill and aplomb. I don't know what aplomb is. I think it sounds like
I think you're trying to be complimentary, so I will accept it in the spirit in which it was made.
But what is a plum? Is that like fruit or something?
Well, that's a plum, not a plum.
Oh, a plum. Okay,
Yes.
I was confused. You have a plummy accent, we could say. Isn't English fun?
English is fun.
It's,
No, you're right, but English is one of the few languages where actually your accent is quite significant. Any Englishman can open his mouth, and everybody who's another Englishman can know everything
They find out everything they need to know about
where
them.
they're from, exactly, where they went to school, probably.
When Americans start talking, it's confusing. You don't have any idea
you have some regional,
what they're saying.
but you
right?
do have some regional accents in America. I mean,
We do,
somebody,
yeah,
somebody
that's
from sort of New York has a very different accent to somebody from Alabama, for example.
Alabama.
Alabama.
What are you're going to sing that song now?
I'm not,
Oh,
because
Moon
I
of
don't
Alabama?
think. Well, I was thinking of the other one, Sweet Home Alabama, but I'm not quite as
It's
good.
Alabama.
Alabama.
But I like how Alabama's nice too.
The southern accents are quite nice, actually. Yeah.
I had an English friend who said Miami instead of Miami.
Miami.
I liked Miami. I thought that was kind of classy.
yes.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I never corrected him. I just said,
No.
"Yeah, it's not.
Well, you
very-
should correct
it's,
people.
Well, no, it's not polite, is it? By the way, stop saying Alabama.
Alabama.
It rhymes with
Alabama.
Obama.
Obama from
What-
Alabama. Yeah.
Also not good. We mustn't make fun of past presidents.
Yes, because Arkansas
Cheers.
doesn't rhyme with Texas.
No, it's. I was having that discussion. It's. It should be Kansas.
Kansas.
Arkansas, right?
Arkansas and Kansas.
I had a friend discussion with a friend of mine last night from Arkansas. Why it isn't Kansas. But none of this really matters.
No,
what really matters is that we're here again.
Exactly. Always a pleasure.
Indeed, it is. It's always a pleasure to see you. And today we have a lot of exciting things we're going to talk about in several installments some travel in Poland.
Super.
You've been around. You've been around the block.
I've seen a few places in Poland, yes.
You've been around
Probably
the
not
block.
quite as many as you.
What's that?
Probably haven't seen quite as much as you have. Especially with your travel show, which is...
In my travel shirt.
Show, which has taken you further afield than you'd been before, probably.
Not really.
Really?
No, not yet. There are places that I haven't seen.
I mean, well, this is one of the frustrating...
There are a lot of places,
but even if
particularly
you think
Western Poland.
when you're at home or when you're at university or wherever, you often don't see a lot of the stuff which is immediate on your doorstep because sort of normal life gets in the way and you don't see it as a tourist. It's your daily life, so you don't make the effort to get out and about.
That's really true.
In the way you should do. And I think the same as with me in Poland. I've not been out and about.
That's true.
As
No,
much
we're
as I
here
should
in
have
Warsaw.
done. We're here in Warsaw.
And we still don't see everything in Warsaw, which I noticed in doing the travel show.
Well, I know in doing the history show, for example, the programme which is coming up about the Saxon kings of Poland and the Ogród-Saski.
The sexy kings? What?
Saxon.
Oh, Saxon kings.
The
Sorry, I
Wettins,
misunderstood
to give them
you.
their family name. But on the pavement on Krakowski Przedmieście, there is a plaque which shows you a diagram of how the Ogród-Saski was originally and talks about the Saxon axis.
That's one of the great attractions in the old days.
I must have walked over that plaque thousands of times
I've never seen it.
and never noticed it.
I've
It's
never
there,
seen
this big thing in the pavement.
It's across from where the president lives, right?
Yeah, well, the
is that
actual
right?
plaque is just actually, if you can imagine, you've got the Bristol on your right-hand side.
Right.
On that side of the pavement, then you've got the Europejski.
Raffles Europejski.
And the other building, and sort of right betwixt them, it's right in the middle, and you look straight
Betwixt?
up. Betwixt?
Isn't that a candy bar?
No, that's Twixt.
Oh,
this is
okay.
betwixt.
You're confusing me.
Of course. Well,
Try to go slowly.
You're American. You will expect to be confused several times during this program.
I'm from Virginia.
But don't worry. Well, you're okay.
It's almost the same as
almost
being American.
the same. Yes, almost the same.
Yeah, and you're from Yorkshire.
I'm from Yorkshire originally. Yes, I'm a Yorkshireman.
Right.
Yes, exactly. So we're very blunt, and we're full of opinions, and we're always right.
OI.
But anyway, the point is...
Do they say OI in Yorkshire?
No,
they say it. AOP?
AOP.
AOP. But not OI. I heard they say OI.
I think that's probably a Hollywoodism from somewhere else. But the point is, this major piece of interesting history I'd walked over umpteen times and never noticed it on the ground. It's just bizarre, isn't it?
Listen, Nicholas, what would you say if you had a visitor to Warsaw? What would you say is the top 3 things that you would want to show them?
Well, I think the museums here are very good. So I'd choose one of the museums. Probably, if it's this time of the year, the Warsaw Uprising Museum.
You'd go there?
Because that's just very interesting. A lot of people are vaguely aware of the Warsaw Uprising. A lot of people get confused, of course, between the Warsaw Uprising in 1944 and the Ghetto Uprising of 1943. So I think it will be interesting for them to to help them correct any misconceptions they may have. 2, it's a very modern museum, so it's quite good for the reactive stuff. And 3, it's just a fascinating and very moving story. And it was a major battle in World War II.
Which was taking place at this time.
Yes, yeah, and so the Warsaw. I mean, we could go on about this subject for a long time. The
1st of August to the 3rd of September.
Yes,
in 44.
Yeah,
1944.
Exactly. These are very. But the Warsaw Uprising got sort of caught up in this great movement, this battle between the Germans and the Soviet forces, which is why it became so ferocious, largely because of the German counteroffensive against the Russians, having been beaten back across Belarus.
And Warsaw being squeezed in between.
Yes. Yeah. But the other tragic thing from the Polish point of view is because of the Ninth Army was focusing on fighting the Russians just over the river. Of course, there were no Wehrmacht soldiers available to put down, as they saw it, to put down the revolt, which was
You've been reading about this,
I have, yeah, I read a very good book.
You've been reading a book about this. Okay,
but the point
I knew it.
But it becomes, and this is very interesting why you would take people to this sort of places, because it's the only major land battle in World War II undertaken by German forces, where the SS and not the Wehrmacht was the main protagonist. And that, of course, led, as we know, to all sorts of tragedy. So, I mean, I think you go to a modern museum like that. I mean, there are other museums here as well.
Where else would you go? I mean, that's a museum. That's the Warsaw Uprising Museum.
Well, obviously,
a name synonymous with Warsaw.
Obviously, the Old Town, and walk around the Old Town and the New Town.
You'd walk around the Old Town. But the Old Town is a new town.
Yes. Well,
and the New Town is an Old Town.
Well, exactly. It's a bit like Edinburgh, where there's a New Town and an Old Town, although the architecture and the periods of time are rather different.
No, I meant that everything was knocked down.
Yes, and then of course now, since the restoration, there's the marvellous walks along the river frontage on the embankment there has been.
So you would go to, and you would say that's your number 3.
Yeah, I think so, because I think it's nice to get a bit of. And then because from the embankment you can see the history, you can see the modern skyline. Okay. You can get a sense of the place, and also rather uniquely, I think, for a major European capital city. If you stand on this side of the river and look across at the trees where it's been undeveloped, you could be in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it has that same. It reminds me on a slightly smaller scale of when I gazed the first time across the Zambezi in Africa. You see, there's this greenery in this river. Wow. So it's actually quite. And you don't get in cities now that most of them have been built up on both sides of the river. Yeah. So that's, I think, a unique.
It's unique. They say it's the biggest beach on a river in Europe.
Yes, and let's hope it stays that way.
We don't see that attraction, but people have been writing about that and saying,
it is.
It's an extraordinary thing.
And when you're lying on that beach, then you can see the skyline of Warsaw, the Old Town and the New Town. But also, more spectacularly, you can see these new skyscrapers which are emerging.
Okay.
Very rapidly.
Stay with us for more exciting stuff about Warsaw in the next episode. I'm going to tell you my top 3. Poland Daily Travel does There's a Will with Nick Richardson. Stay with us. We'll be right back.